Well, welcome back, and what a delight to have back with us, especially on this first day of the new year of broadcasting. Jodell Onstadt, she is a researcher and the author of Yahweh Exists, better known as the book. It's a big, thick book, and it's on the shelf right behind her, so that's what it looks like. And you can pick it up at the bookstores. Check out our website, YahwehExists.com. And today we want to talk to her about what is the connection between the Mosaic Law and that of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights? Jodell, hey, good to see you. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you, Perry. Great to be with you. Great way to start out the new year.
Yeah, it certainly is. And especially in light of the fact that we may be heading into a constitutional crisis in America. Some say we've been in it. And now with the proposed executive order coming out from the president and the attorney general could clearly put us in a constitutional crisis. Do you think that's true?
Absolutely. You know, I do not remember any point in time in history where the Constitution has been so maligned and disregarded. It is just preposterous that we're even having this conversation. It violates and flies in the face that everything of our founding fathers and what they fought to establish with this nation so that we could have liberty.
Well, the president's gotten away with it now over the 7.5 years that he's been president, or 7 years that he's been president. And this is the biggest one. And this is the one issue, gun control. Not only does it attack the Second Amendment to the Constitution, but this is the one that's really emotionally charged. It could really get the pushback, especially with the Republicans in the House and the Senate that are up for re-election. So I don't know. I mean, we got a president that's governing by executive order. How does that fly in contrast to what you have researched in light of the Mosaic Law?
You know, a couple of things. One of the very strong similarities that we have between Western societies, mainly America, and the Mosaic Law is this idea that you are governed not by leaders. You're not governed by even your judiciary. You're actually governed by a constitution. And the Constitution establishes your values. It establishes, the Constitution did not exactly establish human liberties or human rights. There was a lot of debate during the constitutional conventions regarding whether or not there should even be a Bill of Rights. You had the anti-federalists who really wanted the whole entire Constitution to be revamped and federal powers to be more limited. But then you had a lot of people like George Mason who really saw the value and the importance of needing a Bill of Rights. So with both the Mosaic Code as well as with the American society, you have this idea that you are governed by Constitution and not by, fiat, whether it be the judiciary or some executive order that comes out of an executive branch, whether it be monarchy or presidency.
What was it, Jodell, about James Madison that he's known as father of the Constitution? Some say he's father of the Bill of Rights as well. Do you know through your research that he actually looked into the Mosaic Law?
You know, I don't know that we have anything written where he exactly looked into it. But what you do find throughout the writings of all the founding fathers is this claim. First of all, we know the founding fathers read the Hebrew scriptures. They may not have read them in Hebrew. Some of them did, but they were very familiar with the Mosaic Code. Almost all of them unanimously proclaim the Mosaic Code as enlightening, as containing foundations of liberty and informing on the justice of any nation. And so with those values, you see that it very much informed. And then when you see the correlation between the Mosaic Code and the actual Bill of Rights that was put into effect, it's really hard to deny the compatibility.
All right, let's get into it. What specific points does the Mosaic Code hold in common, say, with the Bill of Rights?
Well, you find several things, and what I'd like to focus on today is the similarity between the Sixth Amendment, which establishes rights in criminal cases, with the Bill of Rights. So you find that the Mosaic Code established that everyone has the right to a free and equal trial. You also find that judges, and if you can look this up in Deuteronomy 19:18, you find that judges are actually required to have a search warrant, something probable cause before due process is issued. You can't just go out there and make false accusation without there being some sort of accountability. You also find in Deuteronomy 21:19 that every citizen has the right to a public trial. They also have the right to an appeal. That's Deuteronomy 17, verses 8 and 9. They also had the rights to an impartial judge. That's Leviticus 19:15 and Deuteronomy 25:1. You also had, and this was floored me in my evidence, because, we tend to think of ancient Israel as being very archaic and just not really up with our modern Torah. And this flies in the face, and that is the right to present evidence. You find that in the Mosaic Code, you could present a herdsman who had been accused of killing an animal. Maybe he provided it as food for his family. Maybe he sold it to somebody and made a profit of it. In his defense, he could bring that animal that, say, a wolf or some other creature, wild animal had destroyed. He could bring that carcass as evidence and present it in his defense. So modernly, we find that DNA is very much a legitimate witness in court trials. In addition to having the rights to a fair trial, a person was also, the jury was required to have at least two witnesses present evidence before a guilty verdict and before any capital punishment could be rendered. Modern societies today still follow those precedents. You also find that the defendant has the right to put up a defense. And you can look at that in Exodus 32, verses 9 through 14. You have the right to a public trial. We often think of these as very Greek and Roman rights, things that really were not established until you had the Roman Republic. But honestly, these do predate the Roman Republic. And there is a lot of cogency there. You find that both the defense as well as the prosecution are entitled to due process. They are entitled to put on a thorough investigation. They're not supposed to be looking for scapegoats. They're not looking for someone to take their fall. Rather, they are to seek the truth in the matter. They are to seek, the righteousness of the cause and to follow through. And lastly, one of the last things that we see is the right to a trial by jury. Now, modernly, this jury is chosen, if you have a voter's registration card in most states, you get your summons in the mail and you have to go and appear and see if you're selected for for trial. In ancient Israel, you actually had more of your Congress, people who voted in international affairs, and as well as domestic policy. They convened 3 times a year. And it was at these convenings that these criminal trials would be heard. And you had a very large society that actually informed on the guilty or innocent verdict where a criminal case was concerned.
And all of this is taken from Mosaic Law as it relates to the Sixth Amendment. There's a part of your information there that's very interesting, especially to us in Oregon, and that is the issue of an impartial judge. We have a case now in Oregon where a judge sentenced somebody to 4 years, and then after they served the 4 years and said, you know what, I don't think that's long enough. I think you need to serve another 4.
That is just incredible. What we are seeing today is the overstep and the ignoring, the purposely dismissing of all of the laws, all of the constitutional values, and all of the tort reform that we have had for the last 150 years. It is just amazing how at every part and every way you turn, it is dismissed. I mean, take into example the couple that is prosecuted for not serving people of certain gender values. That's just amazing to me that we're even having this discussion. And then at the same time, you walk into, say, an Islamic store that also refuses to serve the same gender couples, and you have a double standard where there is no prosecution there. I did see a headline last week where a judge in Pennsylvania was convicted of basically selling juveniles into juvenile detention. He was getting kickbacks from a penitentiary who was not meeting their quota. And as you know, the way that government funding goes, if you do not show full beds or near capacity of full beds, your funding is cut back for the next year. So in order to meet those quotas, this judge was sending innocent young men and women to juvenile penitentiaries, ruining families, no heart, no thought for the consequence of his judgments, and just taking these kickbacks, which is one thing that the Torah does indeed prohibit, is donations, kickbacks, or bribes of any type. You know, if we get down to the basics, if we just return to the sane principles that have founded our society, we can eliminate a lot of this overstep and a lot of the oppression that has come about the last 30 years.
All right, let me take a break here. Jodell, when we come back, there's a couple of questions that pop up. Most citizens, even though it's we the people, we feel that we've lost our power to change or bring it back to the basics. Number two, there seems to be a cry for Sharia law. Somehow that's the answer. And I'd like you to answer the question, does Sharia law or is Islam provide a vital interpretation of Mosaic law? We'll be back in just a moment with Jodell Onstadt. And get this book. Here it is, the book called Yahweh Exists. And you can check it out at yahwehexist.com or look for it in the bookstores. Excellent research. We'll be right back.
I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at thedav.us.
Okay, we're back with Jodell Onstadt. She's a researcher and the author of a great resource. It's called Yahweh Exists, and this is a substantial work. And let me just say, this is volume 1. She's working on volume 2s and other things that are coming up with it. So this is remarkable. You may want to check it out at the bookstores or go to our website, yahwehexist.com. By the way, you are working on volume 2?
Yes, I am. I actually was able to make some progress over the holidays, had a little bit of downtime, and it's coming together. It's not going to be quite as long as volume 1, but it's still going to be pretty substantial.
All right. We're talking to Jodell about the Mosaic Law as it relates to the United States Constitution and in particular the Bill of Rights. And she cited earlier as it relates to the Sixth Amendment. But you know what's happening here, Jodell, is a lot of Americans are feeling frustrated. We can't seem to stop a president. Our checks and balances are not checking and balancing. They're just not working. And some people have gone as far as saying, well, the answer is Sharia law. And we know what's happening in Europe where they're allowing some cultures over there to allow Sharia law to coexist. Does Sharia law have any connection with Mosaic law?
It actually does not. And let me give you a few examples. The Torah, the law of Moses, the Mosaic code upon which both Judaism and Christianity are pretty much founded, establishes this idea of universal law, meaning it doesn't matter if you're an Israelite citizen or if you are a foreigner. If you come in to the land of Israel, these laws are binding on you. There were a few things that a foreigner was not compelled to do, like observe some of the ceremonial days, simply because the foreigner really did not have that interest and he was not obligated to do that. So, but you find the idea, especially where justice is concerned, that the laws are universal, that they are applicable to everyone. Sharia is much different than that. Sharia has one law for Muslims, another law for kafir, which would be the unbelievers, and another law for women. So there is no idea of universality. Muslim believers have far more rights, and they are actually commanded, if you are an unbeliever, they are actually commanded to go and either slaughter or force conversion or exact a tax for those unbelievers. So it's very much different. The other thing that you find in Islamic law, and we think of Islamic law being something that, especially those of us that are not real versed in it or really exposed to it, you think of Islamic law as being something that was initiated with Muhammad and something that he instituted. And it actually goes back much further. It goes back to the Persian period. And even further than that, we have some clues in the Torah that it was part of Mesopotamian society and a competing law code at the time of Mosaic. And let me give you one example. Numbers 35:31 states, "You shall take no satisfaction or ransom where a murder has occurred." It says, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. You cannot allow bribery. You cannot allow any sort of payment to be made where there is a call for justice. So the idea there is that where a murder has occurred, the crime itself calls out for justice, and it's not something that can be bought off. The state has the obligation to pursue that justice rather than allowing it to be satisfied among family members. Sharia law is the exact opposite, and this is exactly what the Mosaic Law prohibited, and that is the custom of diyah. And in Islamic law, if a person kills another person, all you have to do is pay off the victim's family. This does not lead to a society where you have equal weights and measures, justice for all citizens. What ends up happening is those with the money, will knock off, for lack of a better term here, they will basically oppress and kill those that will dissent. So anybody in Islamic cultures, you wonder why you don't see a lot more call for democracy within the citizens of Saudi Arabia, Syria, and all of these other nations. It is because within their basic political and religious law code, their wealthier citizens are allowed to kill the impoverished, any of those that would speak out against the state. They are paid off. They're given a ransom. And this is a preset ransom. It's not something that can be negotiated in a court of law. It is something that is preset arbitrarily low. So you give the ransom to the family, hush money to keep them quiet, and you go on your merry way. So there is no constitutional ability to really establish justice within Sharia states. And that's why you see Saudi Arabia, Iran, and so many of these other states just having horrible violations of human rights on every level.
So am I hearing you say that the Mosaic Law actually enhances peace and freedom, and Sharia law does not? In fact, it creates classifications of law and people.
Absolutely. The idea that a law is universal. You cannot have peace and freedom in a nation where you have classes and subclasses. Can you imagine what would happen if we said that, okay, all blonde-haired, blue-eyed people, such as myself, have the right to a trial by jury? We have a right to certain things. And this is kind of the thing that we actually fought against in World War II, were these type of ideals. And then if we say, if you are born with brown hair and brown eyes, and you have a different color skin, or say you come from a different nationality, you have sub-rights within the United States. We did fight a civil war challenging a lot of these issues, and it has been settled in the minds of the United States. But I think Sharia comes in very subtly because it comes in disguised as religion. It comes in disguised as all of these different things. But when you have to go back to the text. It doesn't matter whether it's a Christian text, a Hebrew text, or an Arabic text. You have to go back to what it says, and you have to judge the text based on what is written and compare it. And what you will find, I will challenge everyone that reads the Quran, which is the main body and the main corpus of Islamic law, that you will find that it divides, it separates, and it really instills a lot of hostility between classes for any group of citizens that follow it.
I got about 2 minutes left. It's certainly not enough time. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, check out YahwehExists.com and get a copy of the book and connect with Jodell there. You mentioned it just quickly there, Jodell, and that is, is Islam, in your thinking, is Islam and Sharia law synonymous?
Yes, absolutely.
Then I would say, then you're also saying that it can't be seen as a religion, but a political system.
Exactly. I even make the case for ancient Israel, that we should really see ancient Israel's theology primarily in the political sphere. And what we find are things like bills of rights, constitutions, liberty established within a land for its citizens, as well as the foreigner that comes on the land. When you look at Sharia and you look at the political system that it establishes, it has none of those values. It contradicts those values at every single step of the way. So it is something that really leads to oppression. There's a reason why, if you look at the Middle East, how many times have we seen a wedding or a funeral where a suicide bomber comes in and blows up the wedding party, himself, of course, included, and, injures 30, 100 people. We've been seeing this between Shiite and Sunni, between different factions of Islam really since the Islamic Revolution, in the 1960s and 70s. So I think that you really have to come back to the code. I think you have to ask hard questions, and you have to see where it leads you to.
This is amazing. All right, I only got a minute, so I don't have enough time, but I want to come back to you later and have you back on, talk about, we've been in a constitutional crisis. We're not saying that, but we're in one, and now it's going to manifest itself over the next couple of weeks. Is there any recourse for the people, we the people? A short answer.
I think it is difficult. We have tried recourse through elections. We elected a very conservative Congress, even had a Senate. We took over the majority there. And it seems that the voice of the people is still being maligned. It's still being ignored. You still have a lot of public interest and lobbying groups. So I think that somewhere along the line, you have to limit the lobby groups.
Got to go. Thank you, Jodell. You're an inspiration. Thank you. Let me tell our friends and listeners and viewers, go to YahwehExists.com. YahwehExists.com. Check out the book and check it out at the bookstores. Good to see you. Happy New Year. Look forward to many of your visits in the future. Okay, we'll see you next time. See you next time on Focus Today.